Good morning, afternoon or evening, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update on this smashing Saturday. If you haven't considered, maybe today is the day to consider becoming a subscriber. That subscribe button is there for you, and it will help you stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening with the crypto space, which is what we cover generally in these daily market updates. We've absolutely got to start things off with what can only be described as a circle jerk with a very abrupt ending. And that, of course, is the Whitehouse summit that took place yesterday. There wasn't a lot, certainly, that was revealed publicly. Privately, we're still unsure. But I think retail generally is quite fatigued at the moment. Markets can be both your best friend and your worst enemy. And that's because what they do give you is time, and time can work with you or against you. You know, you can go and use and utilize that time, having that bigger plan like we do for the cryptocurrency space, or you can spend it kind of aimlessly staring at the charts and being emotionally driven by the day-to-day price action that the cryptocurrency market is so good at being volatile with. So we will, of course, address that to start the video off. And I think we're going to look at a number of things. We'll get some more clarity from David Sachs in regards to that tweet from Trump on Sunday. I also want to play you guys a quick clip of my interview that I managed to film with Graham Rodford, who, of course, is the CEO of Archax. Now, Archax is a company that are working with XRP, or Ripple, Hedera, Algo, Solana, so all the big cryptos to essentially enable the tokenization of the world. And actually, Graham put forward something very interesting in regards to what the future world looks like, and actually how digital assets, the NASDAQ just yesterday announced a 24-hour or 24/7 stock market. Actually, with the rise of digital assets, you're going to see the entire tokenization of traditional financial instruments, and then the usage and utility in things like kind of DeFi, or a more interesting financial system, and we'll look at that. And then we're going to look at the data that took place yesterday in regards to non-farm payroll and unemployment, and look at what Scott Bessent had to say. So I still think there's a big macro backdrop that is an easing in monetary policy, and actually they're now getting every excuse to do so. Despite that, there hasn't been much fluctuation in regards to the rate decision we've got in, I think, around about 11 days. So, and then we'll finish things off with some price action. So as always, we've got a hell of a lot to get into, guys. Let's get into it. And let's start things off with probably one of the most standout comments. There was a lot of standout comments. Trump saying never sell your Bitcoin was interesting. And that's obviously because historically that's been the case. Whether that will be the case in the future or not, and what that means for Bitcoin, as that's kind of its main attraction, is being a store of value. Going up against the fiat systems is an entirely different debate. But one of the standout points, there was a number, we'll play a clip from Sergey Nazarov as well, who was there, was what Scott Bessent had to say. He said, "We are going to put a lot of thought into stablecoin regime. We are going to keep the US dollar the reserve currency of the world, and we're going to use stable coins to do it." Now, this ties in with a lot of what we've been looking at with Ripple and, of course, XRP. XLM isn't sort of shied away from that. They're obviously the main issuer of USDC. Stable coins are the evolution of money as we know it. So, in my opinion, just like we went from cash to digital money, money largely is digital. Yes, there's it's a very kind of small amount that's actually printed physically. But in the same way we moved from cash to digital, kind of an internet-style enabled money, we're now going to move on to a crypto-enabled style money, which is, of course, stable coins. And actually, you want to look at, it's a massive, one of the biggest use cases for crypto because currency is such a big market. And actually, you want to look at cryptos that enable that. Something like XRP, something like Stellar Lumens, Hedera, Algo. There's many out there. A lot of them are ISO 20022 compliant coins, which is where we're really interested in looking at. You want to unlock my entire portfolio, do become a Patreon. But this was very interesting. One of the standout moments. Obviously, Brad Garlinghouse was there. He was kind of a little bit on they'd sort of found, here not so much, but there were a few clips where he was sort of sat back a little bit. But this is just insanely bullish in itself, guys. I mean, it truly is. You've got David Sachs there, Scott Bessent, Howard Lupnick. You've got Tom Emmer. You've obviously got Brad. You've got Sergey. Obviously, Michael Saylor were there. The Winklevoss twins, the potential Facebookers, or the people who could have enabled or founded Facebook. This is insanely bullish. The actual summit, or what we got to see of it, and I'm sure there was more after it, was what I meant by circle jerk was it was essentially just people telling Trump that they were very thankful for the fact that it enabled this, and that's kind of what I meant. And it kind of just cut off very quickly. It was about 23 minutes long in total. And of course, we did stream that, and many of you joined us. But Brad Garlinghouse here, ultimately talking about all the amazing things that are fundamentally going on. I interviewed yesterday John Wingate, and he was recently rubbing shoulders with Hester Peirce at the Milken Institute, and just one thing he was talking about was just how amazed he was with all the kind of things that are taking place. Sergey Nazarov, obviously the individual behind Chainlink, or the co-founder of Chainlink. Chainlink is going to be a key player in the new financial system that we're moving towards, because it's essentially going to enable it through becoming a standard, just like the internet has standards, so that it can work in this kind of global fashion and in interoperable fashion. Chainlink is doing that for traditional finance and the crypto space. And I want to play the clip that he had to say, because this was pretty bullish in my opinion, and really just highlights more broadly what's going on here. So let's go ahead and get into that.
I just want to express my deep gratitude for the seriousness with which you're approaching our industry and how you're actually helping guide it in the right direction. I've worked with many central banks in other countries, and when I was working there, I was wondering why I, as an American citizen, can't help the United States financial system reach this higher level that the world is on course towards generally. Right. And so I'm very grateful that finally there's been a new level of kind of common sense and adoption of these ideas. Me and the other people in this room do believe that the crypto, blockchain, Web3 infrastructure is the next iteration of the financial system. And I think that the US should have its leadership position continue in that new financial system. And I'm very, very happy to see people like David Sachs, Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick taking this very seriously with their time, and very grateful to them too. So I'm just overjoyed to see this. And I think it is a big part of how the US can continue its role in the global financial system. So thank you.
You get my kind of circle jerk comment there, don't you? But there was a lot of that. I just really do want to highlight as well that there's never been a better time to be involved in the cryptocurrency space. There's so much taking place. If you think about how impactful the internet is today, we're using it right now. You probably use it throughout your entire day through your mobile phone. Maybe your car uses it, et cetera, et cetera. Everything uses it. All businesses will have to be connected to internet just so they can enable payments and things like this. Crypto is, your identity, everything. Crypto is the kind of on a similar trajectory, and actually the difference being is you can own a part of those protocols through the tokens, and actually the token can be the sort of in-game currency, if you will. It can be the actual mechanism that secures through proof of stake and things like this, et cetera, et cetera. There's this kind of new economy that's being formed, and it's ultimately an economy that exists through enabling the new financial system. So, rather interestingly also, we had that tweet from, and Alex posted this, great writer for us, doing an amazing job. Head over to allincrypto.com, guys. We're really on it in terms of news. Website seeing insane growth despite the market action at the moment in terms of viewerships monthly, which we're over the moon about and want to thank you guys for. But that tweet that took place Sunday, I think we were all expecting more in regards to a follow-up from that. And by that tweet that took place Sunday, I should probably show it, but I haven't got it to hand. It was President Trump talking about XRP, Solana, and ADA becoming part of the crypto strategic reserve. This is David Sachs talking more broadly about perhaps why he had done that. David Sachs, I feel like, kind of had to talk down that tweet afterwards, kind of be the adult in the room, if you will, and kind of say, look, one thing that I derived from yesterday, and the tweet's out there, take what you want from it, but if you look at what David Sachs says, it's that they're not actually going to go out and buy crypto. They would only obtain it through potentially Bitcoin in a zero-sum budget taxing manner. So that means they don't actually have to spend money on it. It would be kind of neutral. It would neutralize itself out. So there could be some genius methods that end up actually adding to the Bitcoin stockpile. Certainly they mentioned the 200,000 that have been seized, I think predominantly from Silk Road. And they said in regards to the other cryptos, it would be similar. So they'd only add to the stockpile through net zero funding mechanisms, meaning that they wouldn't actually have to go and use the budget to do so. It'd have to be kind of equalizing in regards to, maybe they get given it, maybe they buy it, but they sort of, make back the money that they buy in some way, shape or form, or it generates money. There's all these sort of speculations on how they're going to do that. or they seize it, or through sort of legal action, they end up with it. That brings to mind probably the Ripple case and the $125 million fine that the SEC was leveraging. Why hasn't the Ripple case been dismissed, given the fact that all the others that also had lawsuits that were way further behind have been? Something going on there. But in regards to the cryptos that I mentioned specifically, David Sachs kind of gives a little bit of clarity to this. Let's dive into this clip, and then we've got another one clip, and then we'll finish things off with a little bit more broad context of markets through economic data like non-farm payroll, what's perhaps going on, and how this ties into the bigger picture. Let's play this clip.
Holding of the US government. Going back to what President Trump mentioned over the weekend, talking of Ripple, Solana, other alternative coins, that people are wondering whether they're going to be included in this stockpile. Will they? Does the US own them? Why mention them by the president?
Well, the president just mentioned the top 5 cryptocurrencies by market cap. So I think people are just reading into this a little bit too much. He just mentioned the top 5. In terms of what we'll actually have, again, we have to do the accounting. We're not sure, sitting here today, whether the federal government owns any of these alternative cryptocurrencies. We know it owns Bitcoin. I believe it owns some Ethereum. I'm not sure about the other ones. This is why we have to do the accounting, is that, to be honest, no one's been able to give us a straight answer yet in terms of what the federal government owns. And this is part of the problem, is that we've never really had a digital asset strategy before. And this is why we've, missed out on accumulating a lot of value for the American people.
So could they perhaps say that people can pay their taxes in crypto and they could accumulate it through that measure or manner? I mean, there's a whole load of things going on here, but what he did there was kind of dismiss a lot of perhaps the hype that was built up around this. I also want to offer the point that actually it's very interesting that we're all sort of relying on government to pump our bags at this point, when this space kind of originally existed to counteract that. It kind of came into existence because we could almost guarantee the government would destroy our savings. Now we've put our savings in something, we're looking at them to sort of save it. And I think that's very ironic and interesting. On the sort of topic of what Sergey said, this is a quick clip from what me and Graham spoke about, who, of course, he mentions Arve here, but he's, of course, the CEO of Archax. Archax are an amazing company. These guys have tokenized BlackRock's funds, Fidelity's funds, Aberdeen's funds, of course. We interviewed ex-senior manager, investment manager, Duncan Moyer, just the other day or a few weeks ago. But this is the world that's coming, and then we'll finish things off on a little bit of macro stuff.
They're pretty much zero, and some people made money, some people lost money. They're not, they weren't really good long-term investments, but there were some good trades for people. Whereas I think hopefully if you get the traditional instruments over, there are some good longer-term investments for people there as well. But to give you some examples, some kind of pretty easy examples, like if you're an individual that owns Apple shares, I know there are some platforms that allow this, but not everyone. If you own Apple shares, what do you do with them? You log in, you look at it, you see if it's gone up or down, you buy it, you buy some more or sell it, and that's kind of your experience. Whereas your crypto experience is, you can ping it to your mates, you can buy an NFT, you might be able to go and bet on a political outcome, you can do a bunch of stuff with it. So you want to make that tokenized, I can't remember which one I said now, Apple share more useful. So, perhaps if I lent you some money, I want some form of collateral. Well, I'd accept your Apple share with an 80% LTV. All day long. So I take that against you. I take that from you. I hold it as collateral. You repay me one day. I send it back. What does that sound like? It kind of sounds like Aave to me. Aave for regulated securities, which can definitely exist, which Archax has the permissions to do. Hopefully, we'll get the opportunity to build it out or use someone else's that has. But
very interesting. There's a major unlock coming for financial systems around the world. Let's talk about some of the data that took place yesterday in regards to economic data. We had non-farm payrolls, so the total growth was 151. And February essentially also saw unemployment rise. So this wasn't great. It's showing weakening in regards to the labour stats, which is a barometer for the economy, and also an uptick in unemployment. Let's listen to what Scott Bessent has to say about all this.
top 10% of Americans are 40 or 50% of consumption. And that is an unstable equilibrium. The bottom 50% of working Americans have gotten killed. We are trying to address that. We're trying to get rates down. And, could we be seeing that this economy that we inherited starting to roll a bit? Sure. And look, there's going to be a natural adjustment as we move away from public spending to private spending. The market and the economy have just become hooked. We've become addicted to this government spending, and there's going to be a detox period.
Now, that was very interesting because it talks about this kind of detox period. And we're seeing that. We're seeing worsening economic data. That's why you're seeing the kind of floundering in regards to, we've got the S&P 500 here. It's taken a bit of a pullback. But it's very much on a 2000 or start of 2017 trajectory. I ultimately think Trump, and I think one reason they're allowing economic data to sort of worsen a little bit is so they have the mandate to essentially start to ease, and ultimately then see that 2017 repeat, which we looked at through the lens of the dollar the last time Trump got elected and what that meant for risk assets, and us being on that very similar trajectory today. Dollar's certainly gone in the direction we want it to. But when we look at Bitcoin and the crypto space more broadly, I really don't think it's a negative picture at all. I think this is just a pullback in what is going to continue to be a broader uptrend. Certainly, we've got technical merit for that in regards to technical patterns that have technical targets, and they're well on course to be met. And I just think there's this more broad uncertainty in regards to monetary policy, economic data, et cetera, that ultimately gets resolved. So I really don't think it's a negative picture at all. I think people are just disappointed, a little bit fatigued. But generally, things are going in the right direction. Guys, you've got to be in it to win it. Really fundamentally, exceptionally bullish on the cryptocurrency space. Hang in there, guys. That's it from me. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.